Here are the top stories for today, April 16, 2021. Moving up the list, media workers are now among those included in the government's A4 vaccine priority list. We also find out who else are also included in this list. More jobs on the way. The country's vaccine czar says the bulk of vaccines purchased by the government is expected to arrive on the third quarter of the year as global supplies are seen to stabilize. Cutting dependence on vaccine imports. President Rodrigo Duterte wants government agencies to fast-track processing of requirements for vaccine firms planning to set up local manufacturing sites. And bracing for Bising, land and sea travel in the Visayas and Mindanao are suspended as the country gears up for the possible impacts of the second tropical cyclone this year. Good day, I'm Marita Muahe. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Members of the media are now included in the A4 list. The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has approved the proposed sectors yesterday. Other sectors that are also included in the A4 category are commuter transport, market vendors, frontline workers in private and government financial services, and priests and religious leaders, among others. Overseas Filipino workers are also elevated from the B5 category to the A4 level. The Department of Health is developing detailed guidelines for the A4 category. Here are the complete list of sectors under the A4 category. The government will set up more vaccination hubs as more vaccine supplies are expected to arrive in the coming months. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez made this announcement today. Speaking at a visit to a mega vaccination hub in Taguig City, Galvez said the bulk of vaccine supplies is expected to arrive in August as the global vaccine supply is seen to be equalized by the third quarter of 2021. He adds AstraZeneca jobs procured by the government and the private sector through tripartite deals may arrive before the end of April or early May. Meanwhile, Taguig has put up vaccination buses to cater to those who are not able to go to vaccination centers. The city has at least 7 vaccination centers, mainly in malls and schools, and have so far inoculated over 17,000 residents. Mayor Lino Cayetano said they will also offer free inoculation for media members covering the city as they are now included in the government's A4 vaccine priority list. Taguig City will also be part of the mini rollout of 20,000 doses of Sputnik V jabs. Cayetano said they have already secured a cold chain storage facility for the Russian-made vaccine. President Rodrigo Duterte called for the speedy processing of government permits of local pharmaceutical companies that intend to produce COVID-19 vaccines. These details from Chris Mundo.
President Rodrigo Duterte expressed support for the planned local production of COVID-19 vaccines in the country. This after Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez reported that at least 4 pharmaceutical firms have expressed intent to venture into local vaccine manufacturing. Lopez said United Laboratories and Glovax are among the pharmaceutical companies that have signified their plan to manufacture COVID-19 vaccines in the country.
Sa DTI po, inumpisahan nun natin together with UST at kasama ng ating ibang mga ahensya, FDA, DOH, ang pakikipag-usap sa mga companies who can possibly start a commercializing, manufacturing of vaccines in the country. They need our support. Siyempre, dito po kausapin natin ng DOH at FDA Pagdating ko sa magkaroon lamang ng mabilis na processing, green lane on getting government permits.
President Duterte welcomed the possibility of having COVID-19 vaccine produced in the country and told appropriate government agencies to hasten the processing of requirements.
They have cut processes down to the lowest level and ask everybody to cooperate. Itong government procurement of locally produced subject to standards, specs, and prices, madali lang man ito kung trabahuin mo ito.
Should there be any delays, Duterte said he would personally step in if the processing of permits takes longer than 3 days.
The moment I am notified that the papers are with you and have been there for 3 days, ako mismo lalabas dito sa, hindi mo maniwala dyan sa security ko na yan. Lalabas ako, puntahan kita doon sa opisina mo. Kukunin ko yung papel, tapos ako ang pipirma para sa iyo. And then you can go on a long vacation. Ito yung bagong this is the Our Father of government.
For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
The Department of Science and Technology is in advanced talks with local pharmaceutical companies that intends to establish a local COVID-19 vaccine manufacturing facility in the country. In an online press briefing, DOST Undersecretary Rowena Cristina Guevara cites 6 companies that are in advanced talks with the government. Company A is a distributor of a South Korean company. Company B has extensive facilities in Asia and all the vaccines are being manufactured by their foreign partner. Company C is considering to start their local vaccine manufacturing venture with a fill and finish facility. Company D has a connection with a vaccine developer in Germany and is willing to partner with the government. Company E is a long-term partner of a Chinese vaccine producer. And Company F is still looking for a possible partner and intend to initially do form and fill, then do COVID-19.
Most of our pharmaceutical companies are what you would call manufacturing and assembly type, meaning to say all the ingredients of the drugs are imported and then they just package the drugs.
President Rodrigo Duterte said the risk of COVID-19 infection will just increase when people disagree to get vaccinated. He said COVID-19 is an enemy that cannot be seen. The president urges the people to heed the call to get the jobs, not only for themselves, but for others who might get infected.
We are facing a turmoil not only in the Philippines, but in the entire world. Kagaya ng mga Brazil, thickly populated areas, they are scared of the third wave. May mga iba dyan na ayaw talaga magbakuna, okay na lang yan sa akin. Ang problema kung makahawa ka. Do not be afraid. Government is working. Government is busy doing everything, not nothing. Government is trying to get the things to fix all of us.
The Philippines has so far secured around 2.5 million doses of Sinovac vaccines and 525,600 vaccines from United Kingdom's AstraZeneca. The country has administered the jobs to more than 1.2 million Filipinos. Health Undersecretary Leopoldo Vega is pushing to make the One Hospital Command Center a nationwide coordinated referral center. The command center facilitates a comprehensive and coordinated response to the COVID-19 pandemic by ensuring effective and efficient health facility referral in Metro Manila. Vega, who currently heads the center, is seeking for budget allocation to improve their facilities and telecommunications, as well as hiring additional staff to accommodate more people in need. Vega said the center needs to acquire its own private automatic branch exchange to accommodate more calls, which is currently at 400 per day. He said that if there will be a Bayanihan Part 3, he is hoping that one hospital command center would also be included in the budget. Malacanang says it has no plans of imposing a more restrictive quarantine measure in areas that reported an increase of COVID-19 cases. In an online press briefing, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said there was an upward trend of COVID-19 infections in Ilocos region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, and Cordillera Administrative Region. While the government is monitoring the situation in areas outside NCR+, Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said there is no need to impose stricter quarantine rules in the entire Luzon.
Sa ngayon po, binabantayan naman po natin ang datos at wala pa naman pong ganong conclusion ang nakikita natin. Ang talagang paglobo po ng mga kaso ay nandito sa NCR+, at kaya nga po ang response natin dito muna sa NCR+. Pero as I said po, binabantayan din natin ang mga kaso sa iba't ibang lugar ng Pilipinas. Pero so far po, nothing as bad as what we are seen in NCR+.
Still to come, a glimmer of hope. A group says the decreasing COVID-19 attack rate in Quezon City is a good sign. And goods for work? Yes, it's possible for a village in San Juan City. More on this when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Pangalagaan ang sarili laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Hanggat maaari, umiwas sa mataong lugar. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong at bibig, maging malinis sa katawan at ugaliin ang wastong paghuhugas ng kamay. Takpan ang ilong at bibig kung uubo o babahing. Umiwas sa mga taong nagpapakita ng sintomas ng coronavirus disease gaya ng lagnat, ubo at sipon. Magsuot ng face mask kung kinakailangan. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang is asking the public to let President Rodrigo Duterte settle the issue of China's supposed incursions into the West Philippine Sea in a private manner. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said diplomatic negotiations fall under the list of exceptions to Executive Order No. 2, also known as the Freedom of Information.
Kung ano man ang ginagawa ng Presidente, hayaan na natin gawin niya yon sa isang pribadong pamamaraan dahil hindi naman po dapat inaanunsyo sa publiko kung ano yung mga diplomatic initiatives at hakbang na ginagawa ng Pangulo. Needless to say, kaya po yan covered by exception dahil the President must make the right decision no matter what.
Roque said the presence of Chinese vessels in the area is a statement of fact, but expressed optimism that China would withdraw all of its ships, considering that it is the Philippines' friend. The Department of Foreign Affairs earlier filed 2 diplomatic notes against China amid the prolonged presence of its vessels in West Philippine Sea.
So let's leave the President to his devices. Napakita naman po niya na so far, in the past 5 years of his administration, we have moved from a position of antagonism with China to a position of friendship. At malaki naman po ang mapapakinabang natin ngayong nakakapag-usap tayo ng bansang China.
The United States is providing the country with 170 million peso financial aid to support the vaccination rollout of the government. This brings their total financial assistance to the country at nearly 1.3 billion pesos. The U.S. Embassy in Manila said the aid is intended to strengthen the country's vaccine supply chain, monitor vaccine safety, and deliver effective communication campaigns to address vaccine hesitancy. It will also support local government units as they plan for, track, and administer vaccines. The U.S. Embassy said the aid is coursed through the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. U.S. Embassy Chargé d'Affaires John Law made the announcement during its visit to a vaccination site in Caloocan City with Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, Caloocan City Mayor Oscar Malapitan, USAID Philippines Mission Director Lawrence Hardy, and other U.S. and Philippine officials. The Quezon City government has surpassed the 100,000 mark in its COVID-19 vaccination drive since the start of its rollout on March 2. As of April 14, the city government has administered AstraZeneca and Sinovac jabs to over 106,000 individuals belonging to the A1 priority group or medical frontliners, A2 or senior citizens, and A3 or aged 18 to 59 with comorbidities. Among those who have been vaccinated were about 17,000 medical and non-medical healthcare workers from levels 1 and 2 hospitals and over 26,000 from level 3 hospitals. The city currently has 14 inoculation sites with plans to add more. Mild and asymptomatic patients, meanwhile, will be placed in the city's Hope Community Caring Facilities. Meanwhile, the University of the Philippines Octa research team said the decreasing cases of COVID-19 infections in Quezon City is a sign of healing. The city has recorded an 84% recovery rate as of April 14. Octa fellow Professor Ranjit Rai said the data analytics they gathered showed that the city is beginning to recover. Rai said if the situation in QC is managed, then the situation in the whole National Capital Region is managed as well. He added that if everyone in the private sector and the city government work collectively, the improvement will eventually become a trend by next week. In San Juan City, a barangay has inaugurated a store where residents can get groceries in exchange for work. Indigent families in Barangay Ermitaño will render community service to gain points, which they can use to buy grocery items in the Ermitaño Free Store. Services they can render include street sweeping, cleaning own yards, attending meetings, and participating in other village activities. The Ermitaño Free Store was inaugurated on Monday. Mayor Francis Zamora lauded the village initiative, saying it demonstrated the spirit of bayanihan amid the prevailing health crisis. The store accepts donations of additional supplies such as canned goods, clothing, or any food and non-food items like medicines to reach more indigent villagers. Medical frontliners from top priority groups in Iligan City continue to receive COVID-19 vaccine shots on Wednesday. This as more health workers expressed willingness to get vaccinated. Claire Gighe has the story.
The city government of Iligan began the vaccination of its medical frontliners belonging to A1.5 and A1.6 priority groups on Wednesday, April 14, following the arrival of 800 doses of Sinovac vaccines in the city Tuesday, April 13.
Atong gibakunahan karon mao ang mga clinics, BHW, BHERTS, BNS, and contact tracers, Red Cross Dialysis Center. We have to cover that one kay naapay upcoming ang mga vaccines. Maabot within this week.
City Health Office Emergency Operations Center or CHOEOC Cluster Manager Dr. Belinda Lim bared that the local government has no problem with convincing health workers to get immunized. She also shared that frontliners who are eager to take the vaccine greatly superseded reluctant and deferred frontliners.
So far, ang atog yung first target who are the health frontliner, siguro nara sa mga 5% ang mga hesitant o kanang dili siguro magpabakuna. Gani, daghan kayo tang mga health frontliner nga muanhi gusto magpabakuna pero medyo na-disqualify, no? Kay tungod taas og blood pressure, mapdos, unsa pa din ha.
Meanwhile, medical frontliners expressed their joy with the successful first step of immunization.
Ako lipay kay ko nga nakadawat ko ani nga vaccine. Opportunity na nato mga senior, mga frontliner.
For PNA Newsroom, Claire Gighe of the Philippine Information Agency Iligan City Information Center.
In our business news, Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III said taking out loans to help finance the COVID-19 vaccination program is the best approach for the government. Dominguez said this move assures the public that the vaccines they are buying are safe, effective, and internationally accepted. It also shows that the vaccine procurement is transparent. The government has received 58.4 billion pesos in loans from the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank to help finance the vaccination deployment plan. It has secured over 140 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. The government plans to inoculate at least 70 million adult Filipinos this year. Meanwhile, the United States Agency for International Development is providing $3.5 million to further support the Philippines in delivering vaccines received from COVAX. To date, USAID's total COVID-19 support to the Philippines amounts to about 1.25 billion pesos. Up next, the Health Department issues more guidelines for vaccination against COVID-19. And areas in the Visayas and Mindanao are bracing for Bising, the country's second tropical cyclone this year. Details ahead. Stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Alamin ang mga dapat gawin sa lugar ng trabaho laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ang mga kumpanya ay dapat magbigay ng face mask sa kanilang mga empleyado. Bukod dito, magbigay kaalaman din patungkol sa COVID-19. Siguraduhing malinis ang kapaligiran. Maglagay ng sabon at hand sanitizer sa mga palikuran. Siguraduhing ligtas at nalutong maigi ang mga pagkain sa kantina. Obserbahan ang kalusugan ng mga empleyado at katrabaho. Kung sakali man na mayroon silang sintomas ng coronavirus disease, gaya ng lagnat, ubot sipon at hirap sa paghinga, ay agad ipasuri sa doktor. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The Bicol region has been placed on blue alert in anticipation of the effects of Typhoon Bising. More on this and other news from the provinces from Lade Cabagani.
Bicol's Disaster Management Council has put the region under blue alert as Typhoon Bising entered the Philippine area of responsibility today. As of Friday noon, the typhoon was spotted Friday morning at 960 km east of Surigao City, packing maximum sustained winds of 130 km per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 160 km per hour. Under blue alert, all assets are on standby and ready for deployment once needed. Pag-asa said Bicol would feel the effects of the weather disturbance as early as Saturday evening. The Transportation Department has suspended trips for all land vehicles and sea vessels headed to Visayas and Mindanao due to the typhoon. Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture in Cordillera Administrative Region said the region is contributing largely to the production of food that feeds everybody in the country. Dr. Cameron Odsey, the ACAR Regional Director, said the region supplies 80% of the highland vegetable requirement in Metro Manila and in other lowland provinces. Cordillera sells around 1,000 metric tons or 1 million kilograms a day. Odsey said the region also produces heirloom rice, commercial rice, swine, and freshwater fish. He lauded the farmers for continuing to produce food for the Filipinos despite the COVID-19 pandemic. In other news, Eastern Visayas region has received additional 38,400 doses of COVID-19 vaccines for more frontliners in the local government. Jalene Malibago, DOH Regional Information Officer, said these will be used for the remaining priority workers in frontline health services listed under E1 priority group. As of April 13, about 23,471 health workers in the region have been vaccinated with the first dose, while 3,607 others got the second dose. The region has 82,047 health workers in the public and private sector listed in priority list for vaccination categorized as Group A and Group A1. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Laid Kabagani.
The Department of Health has clarified guidelines on the COVID-19 National Deployment and Vaccination Plan. In its latest memorandum, individuals who recently recovered from COVID-19 may be vaccinated immediately after recovery or completion of treatment. Those who are not able to receive their second dose due to medical reasons may reschedule with their respective vaccination sites. Only individuals experiencing a blood pressure of 180/120 or higher with signs and symptoms of organ damage during the screening process cannot be vaccinated. Medical clearance is not required except for immunocompromised individuals such as those with autoimmune disease, HIV, and cancer patients. The DOH also released an updated list of comorbid conditions under the A3 priority group. The DOH reminded the public to observe the minimum public health standards even after vaccination to curb the transmission of COVID-19. In sports, the Philippines Sports Commission and the Philippine Olympic Committee have agreed to seek the help of local government units as Team Philippines prepares for the 31st Southeast Asian Games held in Vietnam this year. In a meeting on Thursday, POC President Representative Abraham Tolentino asked fellow sports officials if the allotted 200 million pesos would be enough for the country's needs in the biennial meet. Based on the projected expenses, half of the budget will be allocated for the actual participation of the nearly 700-man Philippine delegation. Tolentino reminded the group that it is key to get the Department of the Interior and local government to issue a directive on the so-called Godfather LGU program. He has also committed to adopt the sports of cycling and skateboarding in his district. PSC Commissioner Ramon Fernandez said he is banking on the sense of nationalism among the people to receive this program positively. Newly appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs Bui Tan Son hailed the Philippines, Australia, and Malaysia as important and reliable partners that share strategic interests with Vietnam. The Foreign Affairs Minister on Wednesday held separate online conversations with Australian Foreign Minister Marise Payne, Malaysian Foreign Minister Hishamuddin Hossain, and Philippine Secretary of Foreign Affairs Teodoro Locsin Jr. Son expressed his satisfaction with positive developments in Vietnam's strategic partnerships with the three countries amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The Australian, Malaysian, and Philippine ministers also congratulated Son on his appointment. They agreed to coordinate to promote relations with Vietnam, starting with promoting delegation exchanges, implementing bilateral cooperation mechanisms, strengthening and deepening security defense collaboration, support in agricultural aquatic product exports, trade, investment, and official development cooperation. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Moving up the list, media workers are now among those included in the government's A4 vaccine priority list. We also find out who else are also included in this list. More jobs on the way. The country's vaccine czar says the bulk of vaccines purchased by the government is expected to arrive on the third quarter of the year as global supplies are seen to stabilize. Cutting dependence on vaccine imports. President Rodrigo Duterte wants government agencies to fast-track processing of requirements for vaccine firms planning to set up local manufacturing sites. And bracing for Bising, land and sea travel in the Visayas and Mindanao are suspended as the country gears up for the possible impacts of the second tropical cyclone this year. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I'm Marita Muaje. Have a good day.